But since it has methods to do instructions, it is a little bit Dzogchen light. And that's okay. You got to start somewhere, and it's a really good foundational text. So be thinking what your questions are. Chuku kundu zongbo gombo Dorje sempa Garab Dorje dang. Shere singi bardu shin lab de dam abzan tata tusum chi. Dzogchen jupe lamala solo de. Ergin pema junila solo de. Dorje chang chichilo naro dang. Marpa mila gompo tsatsa na pupadang palden drupa suk. Kargulama nomla suluo dib. Ochen lama nomla suluo dib. Drochen lama namla suluo dib. Kaginware lama namla suluo dib. Shaki lama namla suluo dib. Nyandudang yundran lama namla suluo dib. Pa kondu zhongdang yerme pa Gun Garab Dorje jin trag pa Jetita yang nisume pa Palamanam chitinti chong. The three words that strike the heart is the base Nyingma text. Make sure I have the right text. Yes. Base Nyingma text for introducing Dzogchen. It has been, by Garab Dorje, considered founder of the Nyingma lineage and considered a member of the Bon lineage. Probably the same guy. Garab Dorje means adamantine lovable. Due to his charisma, he was able to bring this forth and have it heard. Even as a baby, his mom abandoned him in the forest. She was a nun. She had reasons. And she came back for him after a couple of days. She just couldn't do it. He was too lovable, in spite of the fact that it would be the end of her life as she knew it. She would lose all her friends, her status, everything, as a nun with a baby. That's not that different from the Catholic system. Nuns aren't supposed to have babies. So when she found him, he was fine, happy, cheerful, undamaged, smiling. And she brought him back home and raised him. When he was a young boy, he would disappear. Mama couldn't find him, which is worrisome when they're young, 5, 6, 7. So one day she asked him, "Where are you getting off to?" He says, "Oh, I'm going to Vajrasattva's Pure Land to get teachings. That's where I go." He says, "Well, what have you learned there?" He says, "Oh, everything Vajrasattva knows, I know." Later on, as a young teenager, 13, 14. He told his mom, I want to go to Nalanda and debate those learned ones. They were somewhere within knowledge of Nalanda, somewhere around that part of central India. Nalanda was not that far outside of Benares, in that area. And she's, and he kept pestering her about it and pestering her about it. And finally, she says, look, I'll ask him. So she went to Nalanda and she asked the scholars there, look, my kid won't stop pestering me. He wants to come and debate you. I don't know what to do anymore. It's driving me crazy. And they said, oh, send him to us. We'll take care of it. So they sent him to, she brought him to Nalanda, and he defeated everyone in debate. This is this 14-year-old untrained kid. And so he became the teacher of the scholars of Nalanda. So this is a well-recognized lineage at its time, as well as later on. It gives you a method of entering Dzogchen slightly more easy than being simply dumped in on your head, which is what some of the texts do when you look at, oh, Small Hidden Grain or the Cuckoo Song. There's no method. That's pure Dzogchen completion stage. However, most of us, when we begin to encounter Dzogchen, we want to know, how do you do it? Because we are totally involved in doing. I mean, Neil, what did you do all day? These days, I've seen the tree remains or the branches. You've been pruning. You do stuff, don't you? Anybody here not do stuff? You go to work, you raise your family, you cook some food, you do some recreation, you go somewhere, you do that. So you can't just stop doing. If I told you all to just don't do anything right now, what would you do? You would attempt to do not doing. So that's not going to work. Dumping people in on their heads in the very beginning is ineffective for most people. So you learn to meditate. You do it. You do your practice. And then you expand your practice and familiarize yourself. The first stage is learning to stop looking at stuff. Stop paying attention to stuff for a minute. And look beyond all the stuff. Stuff like, your thoughts that you pay attention to, your feelings that you pay attention to, your physical sensations of the 6 sense organs that you pay attention to. Stop paying attention to all that stuff. Just for a moment, and look in another direction with your attention, not with your eyeballs. Although there are methods using the eyeballs to guide the attention, methods using the body position to assist on guiding the attention. But basically what you're doing is you're taking your attention off the stuff for a minute that you've been obsessing with compulsively since beginningless time. Thoughts, feelings, sensations. And putting it on the context in which the stuff arises and dissipates. And that context is not a thing. So you cannot point focus at it the way you look at stuff. You know, you look at this and then you look at that and then you look at the other thing. You can't do that with Tawa. You actually have to unfocus your attention, out of point focus, which is strongly habituated forever and ever, not just this life. Even the bugs have point focus. They're looking for food. They're point focused on finding something to eat, finding a mate, and not being eaten, just like you. Once you have learned how to disengage your point focus, to disengage your attention from stuff, and discovered what is beyond the beyond, inconceivable, even if by only a glimpse discovered, then you get to familiarize yourself with it by noticing it repeatedly. That's a method. Now I've given you enough time to think up questions. Does anyone have some, either here or out there? Yes.
It might be a bit of a silly one, but when you say you went and debated, what kind of things do they debate in the Dharma?
Oh, goodness. Whether Tawa is like the sky or is the sky. That's a big Mahamudra one. If you examine it in light of Dzogchen or true Mahamudra, the answer becomes obvious. What's another one? Little shades of meaning. You've seen the Galupas where they thwap at each other with their malas and dance and stamp, doing debates?
I haven't, but I think I've heard you talk about it.
You know, bam! And threatening each other to hit with the malas, but you're not allowed to actually hit. You're just supposed to startle the person so they don't think straight. It's a lot of fun. You ought to see a bunch of teenage boys doing it. As good as soccer. Yes.
Which version of 3 Words of Garab Dorje are you using for today?
I'm using only the root text. And there's a nice copy that is very well translated and has the Tibetan over at Lotsawa House. If you all choose to download that, please make a gift to Lotsawa House. They did the work of it for free and put it out there for you. That's how they can do it for free. Because the rest of us know that when we use their stuff, we make a gift. And they're good translators. It's really nice. It's really very close to the Tibetan. Doesn't deviate. I've always just had it in Tibetan from way back, you know, with my own squitchies. So it's nice to have a written out, nicely formal translation to work from. Did you have a question? Yes.
Sometimes when I'm singing Tawa or whatever I'm doing.
Oh, here's the microphone.
My experience of seeing Tawa sometimes is like waking up in a lucid dream. It's really big, really vacuous. Is that a nyam? It scares me out of it. Or startles
Yes,
me out
it's
of
a
it.
nyam, but it's a signpost that you're doing it right. Any meditative experience that has a beginning and therefore will have an end is considered a nyam, which is the word for meditative experience, but it's easier to say than saying meditative experience, 10 times fast. So yes, that's a nyam. Your experiences of Tawa will continue to be nyams until. But there's signposts on the road. Lafayette, next exit. You know where you're going. You turn on the next exit if Lafayette is where you're going. So what you really want to do is use your noms as signposts. But just because you're going to Lafayette doesn't mean you stop the car at the signpost that has the word written on it and hang on to that for dear life. So noms are good if you don't get stuck in them or trapped in them or attached to them. Damn useful. Tells you you're on the right road. Yes.
Hi, I was not at the course where you gave this text, and online it said that this was Q&A on Guru Rinpoche. So
Is what?
Online it said that this was Q&A about Guru Rinpoche, and so I'm curious.
No, that was yesterday.
Oh, okay. Okay, then that answers my question.
Yes.
When you were talking about the third word of Garab Dorje, you said that thoughts arise and disappear like riding on water.
Yes.
And I feel like I'm missing some of the significance of that because it seems obvious that thoughts arise and disappear without a trace. So I feel like there's something there that I'm overlooking.
It's not a matter of knowing that. It's a matter of directly perceiving that, watching them do that while watching Tawa, the infinite vastness in which they do that. So if you're looking at the writing on the water, you're also looking at the water. If you do that long enough, they lose their power over you. You see, thoughts have you by the nose. You're here today because you thought to come. You could not have gotten here if you hadn't thought of coming. They've got us all by the nose. And we obey them implicitly. That's what you want to get free from. Believing everything you think in spite of your experience that you have often been mistaken. And yet you believe the next one. Believing your thoughts is as bad as believing everything you read on the internet.
Thank you.
We need another one of those.
Yes, I'll look into it after today. One question we have is it possible to forget the nature of the mind once it's been found if you don't practice enough?
Yes. If you have found it with your intellect, feelings, or perceptions, yes. You are still holding yourself separate from it. And for as long as you hold yourself separate from it, it is possible to forget. As you continue to practice, right now you identify as your personality, Molly, Lena. We do that. That is normal to us. And we look at Tawa with our personality. And there's Tawa, which is why it gets translated as the view, because in the beginning it's like a view. And there's me, looking at Tawa, shifting my attention. That needs to mature. Like making sauerkraut, it's not really good the first day. You have to let it ferment. You have to let it mature through familiarization with it until that separation of subject and object, which is held separate by thoughts, feelings, and sensations, shifts, becomes transparent, translucent, transparent, a local, useful around here thingy, but not a real thingy. But that comes from practice repeatedly. The word gam comes from a root which means to familiarize yourself with something. If I hire you for a job involving some equipment, so the first day I say, familiarize yourself with the equipment we'll be using, or familiarize yourself with the computer systems that we use here, or the phone system that we use here. That would be normal when you first get hired for a job. So in the same way, Gam, the second word of Garab Dorje, is where you familiarize yourself with Tawa. By doing so, your relationship with Tawa matures so that there is not such a separation. Because you see, Tawa is your own mind. You are Tawa. You just don't feel like it. You think you are you and you see Tawa. That passes with experience. Next question.
The internet has a question. The possibility of not having anything to cling to is almost unbearable. I received the pointing out of emptiness from you, and I can't rest in this natural state. What can I do?
Nundro, you're not right for it yet. How to tell who's ready for Dzogchen? They love it. Lion's pups. When the lion roars in the jungle, this is Tibetan analogy. When the lion roars in the jungle, all the wild animals cower in fear, except the lion cubs who come running because they recognize Mama's voice. So if Dzogchen is scaring you, work more Tantra until it doesn't. Tantras, all the Tantras, every single one of them points at it. You need, in order to practice Dzogchen, your karmic energy pattern. Oh, and Jenya, link to text. Google, Lotsawa House, Dzogchen, Garab Dorje. Your energy patterns, your karmic patterns, they have to be naturally open and relaxed enough to keep from being terribly shocked and frightened by Dzogchen. This is also called, you have to have accumulated enough Gewa. Just another way of saying it. So how do you accumulate Gewa? First of all, you don't accumulate it for yourself. Because there is no self separate from everything around you, so you accumulate it for everything around you, and that also accumulates it for you together with. This is why we dedicate the merits. There aren't little gold stars hanging out somewhere called merits that You get to get and give away. These are symbols, twilight speech, for a certain openness of pattern, which is caused by the practice of the 6 paramitas for the sake of others. Generosity, but not just giving stuff, money. How about generosity of speech? When you encounter a person, you can say something complimentary about them. You have gorgeous hair, which you do. Or you can say uncomplimentary about them. I'm not sure about that t-shirt. These are yours. I'm using you for an example. I hope you don't mind. How would they feel? Now, she knows I'm goofing with her, so she didn't get a lot of feelings out of those. But if she didn't know I was goofing with her, she would have felt, oh, ah, or is digpa. Oh, ah is gewa. So with generosity of speech, when you have a choice of whether you will note the problem or the good point, unless you are in a situation where the purpose there is to find and solve the problem, pick the good point, generosity of speech. And even if you're trying to solve the problem, put it in a sandwich. Good thing, problem, good thing. They're much easier to eat in sandwiches, problems. Generosity of mind, however, is the key. That's the big one. When someone cuts you off in traffic, what do you think? Motherfucking asshole. Or, oh dear, well, I hope he gets there on time. Because you don't know why he did that. Is he trying to get home because his wife's going into labor? You'd have nary a clue. Is the babysitter's time about to expire and she's threatening to walk out on the kids because she has to be somewhere next, like a class she takes, and you're late because you got hung up in a meeting, or he's late or she's late? You don't know. And generosity of mind. Choose to think the best of the situation. That does not mean leaving your car door unlocked in the middle of the city. Choose to think that all the people around here are nice and kind, but realize someone might, due to their circumstances, be quite desperate, and there is no reason to trick them into creating digpa by stealing from you by leaving the car open, or something somebody really wants sitting on the dashboard. Do you see? Patience is the same. Morality is the same. And morality is not Christian morality. It's really not about sex. The Christian church got really hung up about sex. And there were reasons. But morality is much more of a relating to the world with openness, not trying to squish it. If you practice Gewa, I'm not going to go into a whole teaching on the 6 paramitas. Find it online if you're interested, or schedule it with me another time and I'll give it. They're really good. As a guide to how to create enough Gewa to make Dzogchen easy and not scary for you if it's scary. Generosity is the first and the most important, and generosity of mind is the most important generosity. And that doesn't mean Pollyanna. That doesn't mean don't see that somebody's strung out and will steal your back teeth if they can, because they're pretty desperate. That means not hating them for it. Nonetheless, keeping an eye on the situation. Seeing the best in that person who is currently suffering an unfortunate socio-medical, cultural situation, probably brought about by trauma. Does this answer the question? Many of you will find in approaching Dzogchen that fear occurs. That doesn't mean you can't practice Dzogchen. That just means you should probably make a little more Gewa as well. The fastest way is Tantra. But you can't spend your whole day sitting there. So add the 6 paramitas to your daily go about here and there. Become familiar with generosity of mind, patience of mind. I'm caught in traffic, and that's just what it is. I'd rather not be, but here I am, so I'll run a mantra, I'll put a book on tape on and enjoy myself, because I'm going to be here a while. So those of you who do experience fear, more Tantra, more Gewa. When Gewa has caused your personal pattern to be more like the patterns of all Buddhas of the 4th time, Dzogchen will feel easy like mama. So don't give up on Dzogchen in the very beginning. Just add something to it. And check again after a little while and see if Tawa still is scary or if it feels exciting. Fear and excitement, it's just the story you tell yourself around it. Other questions?
The internet has more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's more people out there than in here.
True. The question is, how does one get used to talking while in Tawa or glancing? I tend to stutter and forget my words.
Then don't try that yet. Give it time. Become more accustomed to doing things like pedaling a bicycle in Tawa, rowing a boat, climbing a flight of stairs, without falling down or hurting yourself. Try in unimportant, non-loaded situations first as far as talking, such as greeting a shop clerk. Hey, how you doing? Do you have any 2-inch screws? It's a common thing one's looking for. That's a pretty easy, non-emotionally loaded thing. Or, how much is this cheese per pound? Simple. That's a lot easier than an intense conversation. So start there. In GOM, familiarization, the meditative practice of familiarizing yourself with Tawa, you simply repeatedly notice whether Tawa is still there or not by giving a glance. For example, if I were to assign you a day's full day practice to make sure that the sky was still up there, repeatedly, whatever you were doing, go look out the window, go, step out the door if you're inside, but I want you to constantly for a day make sure the sky's still up there. Well, that's the equivalent, except you already are sure that the sky's still up there. You're not sure yet about Tawa. Not this sure. Not the way you're sure of gravity. None of you have sat here worried about drifting off and getting entangled in those fans. Now, have you? Because you're sure of gravity, but you haven't thought about it, gravity. You've just been so sure that you didn't even have to think about it. You got to get that sure about Tawa. At which point, the third word of Garab Dorje, sopa, the spontaneous action of non-action, will occur by itself. It's a not doing, you can't make it. And it's not new. It's always been like that. But you got to get sure and notice a lot before you'll be sure that it's always been like that. And you will be free from the tyranny of your thoughts and emotions, and eventually sensations as well. That's harder. But all three have their difficulties. Well, working with perceptions, the third part in Canada this year, for anyone who wants to come up. It's not unreasonably priced for what you get. The cook is usually pretty damn good. Other questions?
A number of questions about the gaze and practicing with the gaze, or are there specific practices like skygazing that are useful?
For some people, in some circumstances, doing your seated meditation while facing the sky, either through an open window. Now, around here, that may be a bit problematic in the summer on account of skeeters. And through a screen is not suggested. So this would be a practice here in Louisiana that you would do in spring, fall, and sometimes dressed warm in winter by going out on a balcony or a roof. You don't have any mountains to go up. But what you want is the sky straight ahead. So you have to go up something high. Otherwise, you're going to crick your neck doing it. And also, your thoughts will speed up beyond your comfort level. It's also possible to do it laying flat on your back, provided you do it as if you were sitting in a chair with your legs propped up at the knee. Don't do it flat without your legs propped up in the beginning, because it's not the anatomical back position. It doesn't give you the straight back. Later on, it won't matter. But for the beginning, there's all these little things that make it easier to see Tawa, to shift your attention from what you're thinking to where the thoughts occur. Things that make it easier to make that shift, which is counter habit to an eon-long habit, we've all, for eon upon eon, life upon life, been totally, compulsively obsessing with things, thoughts, feelings, objects, what we think about the object, how we feel about the object, what we intend to do with the object, whether we want to acquire the object or get the object out of here. It's obsessive. It's an OCD. Now, we're going to try to break that, which is not that easy, so that you can take your attention off stuff. And your stuff will no longer own you. Your house owns you. Mortgage, plumbing, everything that you think you own owns you. Your thoughts lead you around by a ring in your nose. Your feelings, too, illogical as they may be. When you have a panic attack for no reason, or for a perfectly good reason, you immediately try to get away from the thing scaring you. And if there's nothing scaring you, you'd have a glass of whiskey, which also works. Yeah? I'm not the only one who's been known to use that method in my life. Some people use a joint, okay. Some people use heroin. Kills the fear. To be free of that tyranny is valuable. This is how you do it. The gaze, straight ahead, look at a point in space 2 meters in front of the end of your nose, approximately. Don't get persnickety here. And then let go of the point. Let your eyes unfocus so that peripheral stuff and central stuff are equally clear, not clear. If your channels are in decent alignment when you do this, and your breathing is mostly through the nose, a little bit through the mouth, with the out breath longer than the in breath, all of these little tricks make it easier to shift your attention from the habituated compulsive point focus that you normally keep it in to a wide open awareness, which is itself Tawa. Follow your thoughts home. All the other things about the gaze, gazing at the sky, are just tricks to make it easier in the beginning. Because you're breaking an eon's old habit. You need everything. It's like kicking heroin. Come on. You've been doing it a long time, and it's problematic, and it's going to squeak a bit. But you can do it. You just do it. Relax. Instead of looking at what you are thinking, point by point, little bitty thought bit by bit, Relax. Let your attention expand into the vastness in which your thoughts arise and vanish. All your thoughts forever and on have arisen in this vastness and vanished in this vastness. It is nothing new, it is simply mind itself, unlimited by thought, feeling, sensation. There's nothing scary here. Nothing new that has not been here from beginningless time. Your mind, my mind, the mind, neither singular nor multiplex. For those are thoughts. Singular is a thought. Multiplicity is a thought. They arise in the vastness. They dissolve in the vastness. They have no effect whatsoever on it. Just as the clouds and the wind do not blow around the sky, do not affect it whatsoever. And your thoughts arising and vanishing, like the tracks of a bird in the sky, leave no residue behind. And by resting here, again and again, when you have those moments, stuck in traffic, waiting for the bus, stopping in a cafe or a pub, and resting in open awareness, it becomes more and more familiar. The process is not to create or acquire something that wasn't there before. This has always been your mind. It's everybody's mind. The process is simply to familiarize yourself with open awareness rather than be compulsively trapped in your addiction to point focus. You're simply kicking a habit. I believe it's easier than stopping smoking. Do you understand? You got questions? So understand this, the gazes, the positions, looking at the sky, lying on your back. These are all just tricks that might help you in the beginning. Once you don't need them, great, do it in a pretzel. Still there, didn't change. Tawa is the same whether I stand on my head or my feet. Only difference is I tend to fall over when I stand on my head. Oh no, I tend to fall over when I stand on my feet sometimes too. Next question.
One of our Spanish viewers asks, what is the difference between this meditation and mindfulness?
To my understanding of mindfulness, which in the Tibetan system simply is a tool of remembering. Be mindful of where you've put your car keys. Always put them in the same place. Use that same way. So you use the Tibetan idea of mindfulness in GOM to simply remember to check and see if Tawa is still there frequently. However, in Western New Age meditation, I believe mindfulness is a form of the be here now movement, where you actually focus on being right in the moment, but you're still paying attention to your six senses, sensations, the thoughts arising and the feelings of being in the moment, and you're thinking about being in the moment. So I don't really see much similarity if I understand mindfulness meditation in the way you mean it. I understand it in the Tibetan context, but it just means remember to do that. Use mindfulness to remember. So it's just a little tool you use. I do believe the Western context, it has other meanings. But not really having studied those meanings, it'd be hard to answer you. Next question.
I haven't been able to do meditations with visualization. All visualizations seem very artificial. What should I do? Should I continue tantric visualization further or go to Shine?
Seem artificial. Of course they do. You use your imagination. Do you not daydream? Do you not have sex fantasies? I thought everybody did. So with visualization, when you have a sex fantasy you visualize, yes, it's artificial. Or do you only watch porn for that purpose and not actually have your own? Your own are always better than the ones you find online. You could go to Shine, but working with symbolism through the unconscious is pretty valuable. It's the idea that the artificiality of imagination bothers you that I'm a little perplexed by. That's how artists paint. They imagine something. Except for the few who do this strict realistic. But all the impressionists and the abstracts, it's imagination and creativity. However, if it is not comfortable for you and you don't like it, you're not going to do it. So yes, try Shine with a pebble. Mahamudra. Next question.
There's a question about combining practices. For example, how can Chud and Dzogchen practice support each other?
Your survival reflex, which Chud is a counter to, among other things. Your pagcha, your parchis, your glitches, and your geks, Chud counters. All these words translate into English as demon, but they all mean completely different things. Your matted bits of your channel patterns, where traumas got stuck and tangled it. Geks. Your negative tendencies, pagchas. In Chud, counter to your own survival reflex, you feed yourself to your own demons. This is very powerful symbolically to get past the withhold of attempting to remain solid as an individual, which you will have to let go of to practice Dzogchen effectively. So yes, Chud is an excellent adjunct to Dzogchen, or rather, might I say, a preliminary to Dzogchen. Next question.
Why do cities appear when the practitioner is drunk? Why don't they really show up when you're sober?
Because you're not allowed. It is forbidden to demonstrate your cities without a damn good reason. They are unreliable anyway, the first ones you get. They're come and goes. You can get nyams that are superpowers too. Been there, done that. Highly annoying when it wore off. So when you're drunk, you forget to hide it. This is why I have spent a certain amount of time pulling a certain old drunk yogi out of a wall, assorted walls in tea shops, so that nobody caught him at it, because he would not like to be stuck on a throne. And that's what they do if they catch you. They stick you up on the throne and don't let you do anything or go anywhere. Nobody wants that. So discretion, but sometimes when you're drunk, you forget to be discreet. Oops. Now, it is possible, if you think it is going to be of great benefit to all sentient beings, or to an individual sentient being, to show them a city. But I have a story for you. My teacher, who's a great siddha, I caught him at it a few times, had a student who really felt that he wanted to see a siddha, a city, manifest. And so he came to my teacher. I'm the translator, so I'm aware of what's, I'm translating this. And he begged my teacher to show him a city so that he could really have faith in the Dharma. And while he's doing this, my teacher, whose hands are in his lap, brings one hand up right through the table, picks up his beverage, water bottle, takes a sip, puts it down. It goes down through the table a little bit. He picks it back up and sets it on the table. Apparently that took some effort. And then he drops his hand through the table. And when the student finally ran down with his request, this is all while he's making the request. Remember, Rinpoche looked at him quite sadly and said, "I'm sorry, I cannot show you a city." And then the guy reassured Rinpoche that he still had faith in him anyway. So in order for Adzon Rinpoche to leave that handprint in the stone, remember what he did to all the people around there? He got them exhausted. They couldn't think straight. They couldn't resist that perception if he projected it loud enough. All actions, not just of a lama, are not singular. They are interactions. You would have to be able to see a city, and the teacher would have to be able to do a city. When these two things come together, one witnesses such. I'm pretty good at seeing it. So I've caught them a few times. But they also kind of know I'm not going to stick anybody on a throne. Or be indiscreet about who it was during their lifetime. This is why you often only catch them at it when they're drunk. There's a famous Tibetan tradition of you have to be able to outdrink the Lama. Taking the Lama out, matching them one for one until they're 3 sheets to the wind, and then asking them for the secret teachings. You get the best stuff that way, but you got to be able to hold your liquor at least as well as, if not better than, the Lama. Fortunately, I could in my youth. Next question.
A couple of questions about Dzogchen and fear. One
Yes.
of our Spanish viewers asks, sometimes in my meditation, I feel the beginning of a movement as if something will happen and I get scared. What should I do? And
Accept my reassurance that nothing will happen.
And the related question is, why is Dzogchen scary?
Because you're holding yourself too tight as an individual entity, and it challenges that because it's so obvious in Dzogchen that you're a node, not a entity. You're an interaction. Look, guys, you all have a personality, right? We're not going to deny that. Where'd you get it? You don't have the same personality you had when you were 14, do you? Apologies to anyone who may be 14 in here. I can't tell people's age by looking. So, what changed you from who you were at 14 to who you are now? Movies you saw, books you read, lovers you had, interactions with others, traumatic, pleasant, unpleasant. That's where you got your personality. There's a certain amount hardwired in, but not all of it. Most of it. And that hardwire goes away when you die. And then it changes again, according to your interactions with yourself in the bardo, with yourself and with the entire web of phenomena. So you're continuously changing and growing. There's not a single thing that is you. Wouldn't it be horrible not to be growing? Not to be getting wiser? To be stuck like a ghost, which cannot change from how they were when they died? That's the horror of being a ghost. They don't grow. They're like a recording of a personality that cannot grow or change with stimulus. So your survival reflex is to survive as an entity, solid seeming, alive, form, personality, hopes, fears, that whole bundle, to hold it as a thing tightly. That tightness is a problem in Dzogchen. You must be able to let go of that. Hence, Chud, Vajrasattva, Tantra, 6 paramitas creating Gewa. Remember, Gewa is an open relaxingness. Digpa is a constriction, not of just the person doing it or feeling it, but of everything around them. You know you affect your whole family when you're in a grouch, as do your kids. They'll affect the whole family if they're in a good mood, a bad mood. It spreads. Does this make an answer to that question?
I think
Yes, Molly.
Should we be looking or asking for ways outside of meditation to stretch the contraction? outside of meditation, the 6 paramitas?
No harm in it. There may be some Western methods to stretch the contraction. Physiologically, I don't think you need methods beyond these, since these have been known to work for centuries. But you're welcome to play with other things that you think might help, such as power plants. The only thing I'll recommend with power plants is please go to a traditional professional. Don't be just mucking about with them like a hippie. They have purposes, they have uses. That's why they're called power plants. The difference between smoking a peace pipe in context and getting strung out on cigarettes. Difference is obvious, isn't it? So go find a method. Go find the proper shaman for whatever it is you want to work with. I'm not trained in these to teach them to you. I can send you to someone for psilocybin down in Mexico, who I'm aware is quite pretty good. And I'm sure other people will know where to find the wood, which comes out of what used to be the Belgian Congo, and I'm not sure what it's called now. Because wood is really good, very powerful. There's a lot of different things.
So your teacher only gave you exercises within the context of the teachings?
Yes, because he was within the context of the teachings. He never did learn English beyond hello, goodbye, where's the bathroom? Just basic survival English. He was not acculturated. I got him a jackalope, a stuffed jackalope once. It bothered him enough that he put a pillowcase over it. You'd have to know the Tibetan culture to know why a jackalope would bother one so terribly much. Rabbit horns is, they talk about in Dzogchen a lot. That's why I got him a jackalope. Yes.
Speaking of this, if I wanted to learn more about the Tibetan context, what would you suggest?
Go live in Sopema.
Okay.
Or even further up. You can try Ladakh. By now, the Tibetan context in Sopema is fairly diluted. And Kanor is a different context. You're going to have to go live with a bunch of Tibetans that don't speak English. Sopema is the place I know. Dharamsala is not Tibetan context fully. It's been the seat of the government long enough that it's like any port city. It's well mixed up and things have changed. Sopema is not bad now, especially if you go in the off season.
Has any reading material? I found I've gathered some.
Tales of Uncle Tompa.
What is that again?
Tales of Uncle Tompa.
Okay.
It's the Tibetan Brer Rabbit.
Okay.
You'll like it. Uncle Tompa sells penises in the nunnery. It's quite good.
Oh, yeah.
That's folk tales.
Yeah, I read
That will help.
In the history of Tibet, a Western woman going even 100 years ago, and I felt like I got something from it.
Alexandra David Neal?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's also quite good, Magic and Mystery. That gives you some context.
Yeah, it was interesting to see a Western woman even 100 years ago going taught and what she related to.
She was French, specifically.
Yeah.
So not Western, a
Very
French
well.
woman. Yeah. She brought a bathtub with her.
She did.
Yeah, she lost it along the way, but she did start out with one. Yes, Nanda.
You addressed this question yesterday for Tantra, so people are asking you to address it again for Dzogchen. And that is, what advice do you have for people diagnosed with ADHD, depression, or other neurodivergent?
Short sessions for ADHD. Longer sections for hyperfocus. That's another neurodivergency. Or, you know, the house can fall down while you're reading a book and you won't notice. So first, learn what your level of skills, what your strong points are, what are your superpowers, is what we say in the ASPE community. Because we've all got a superpower or two. Find out what it is and use it. And then what are your trips over it? Find out what they are and figure out a workaround. We're all different. So if ADD is part of your function where long focus is not possible, you should make more frequent sessions, but shorter. Probably nothing longer than 5 minutes, and 3 minutes might be better. Also, be slightly physically tired. So if you go to the gym, it's after you get home from the gym and you've had your shower and you're sitting down with a nice electrolyte beverage that you might try having a session. Because your body will be a little tired, so it's not going to run quite as fast. But with ADD, no long sessions. They won't work for you. Frequent, short sessions. But still make sessions on the cushion. 3 minutes many times a day is fine instead of 40 minutes once a day. How many 3s in 40? How many 3s in 20? 7-ish. So a 20-minute session every morning is considered sort of a minimum. So how about 7 3-minute sessions every day for ADD? Figure out where you want to put them. For hyperfocus, go ahead and have a longer session because that will be easier for you. For those of you for whom transition is the bugger, in and out of session, a long session entered slowly at your convenience with nothing happening after it, like Neil's afternoon naps, what he calls a nap. He's got 3 hours there where he doesn't make other commitments. For those of you with transitional issues where switching topics is what's hard, then go for something like that. You don't have to spend the entire time in session, but you've given yourself a chunk of time without transition to relax. So that would be an excellent method if that's the issue. Find out what yours is. I have trouble with transitions and I'm hyperfocused. So that's what I use. Things like that. My mornings are sacred. You will rarely get me anywhere before 10 a.m., and that's not because I'm not awake. That's mine. For Neil, it works better to have afternoons. look at yourself and see what works for you. We all say, okay, we're all neurodivergent. And some of us are characterized as ADD or Asperger's. But actually, it's different for everybody. I need a certain clearness in my aesthetic, or I can't find anything. Everything needs to be in its place or it doesn't exist for me. It can be sitting 6 inches away from its place, and I'm having trouble finding it. My grandson, who is also autistic, needs everything spread out in chaos or he's uncomfortable. We're different. Learn yours. Next question. That was pretty much as I want to say on neurodivergence here.
Okay. Earlier we talked about combining practices. One person asks, could I conceivably use these basic teachings alone as the path for the rest of my life, or do I need to add other methods?
You do not need to add other methods. If you like this enough to do that, as you suggested, excellent. Do so. But if you find yourself losing interest and drifting away, do something about it. Any more questions out this way? Okay, keep going with the online ones.
Okay. A couple of questions about differences and similarities between Dzogchen and Zen, and whether you can get a look at Tawa, for example, by following a Zen koan and working with Zen in that way.
Well, I have been led to believe that you can, but I have not practiced enough Zen to really say unequivocally that that would be how you get there. It's a different method. Real Zen is actually closer to real Dzogchen, and there isn't that much of a Zen light as there is in Dzogchen, where you're given methods to make a Dzogchen light. Oh, it's still beer. You'll still get an effect from it, but entry. In Zen, they do not fall into the trap of using too many words, which the Tibetans do. I believe it's very pure. We also have a few koans, but they're not given the importance they are in Zen. What I know of it makes me think it is an extremely beautiful and valid lineage. And if it's the one you're feeling to, wonderful. And that's all I can say about Zen, because I'm not trained in it. I just read a couple of books, and I once did have the wonderful experience of doing simultaneous translation of a conversation between a Zen master and who had a big Zen center, and my teacher Wangdo Rinpoche over lunch. And it was Zen ping pong, koan ping pong. It was beautiful. Afterwards, I couldn't remember a word of it, of course. I didn't get to eat much, but it was worth it. They both seemed to feel each other's lineage was quite valid. I wasn't even well trained enough in those days to have an opinion on that. Next question.
Can you give concise and easy to practice instructions on how to be present in the, quote, all goodness of Kuntu Zangpo and Kuntu Zangmo in daily life, going to work, being in a community, etc.?
Sure, forget completely the word goodness. What you think it means is not what it means. Yes, it's all perfect, but that's not what you think perfect means. So drop those words. They will confuse you, goodness and perfect. Because in the way that you have, growing up in a monotheistic culture, in the way you have been given to understand those words, they are part of a polarity. Perfect and imperfect. Good and evil. That is not in the least what is meant by those words in this context. So don't use them to yourself. In daily life, the easiest way to accomplish this, quote from Jangchub Dorje, teacher of Naumki Norbu Rinpoche and Wangdo Rinpoche, while walking and talking, while getting up and while sitting down, all the time, whatever you're doing, right while you're doing it, recognize the already known Dharmakaya nature of mind, the already known Tawa. This is GAM, familiarization. The fastest and easiest way for you to do what you have wished to do is first take those projections of all good and perfect and all of those stuffs right off it. Take that away. It will lead you astray. Because it's not that kind of good or perfect. It's a different kind. Once you've taken away all your ideas of what it's supposed to be, then practice GAM, familiarization. Just the way Jangchub Dorje said. Whatever you're doing right while you do it, not after in the gaps between doings, in the during. Notice, quick glance. Do not name it. Do not constrain it with your ideas of what you hope it will be or fear it might be. Do not lay upon it any concepts such as all good, Samantabhadra, perfect, because this will lead to your squishing it. And you don't want to do that. So that is the simple instructions for how to do that in daily life. Next question.
Would you explain more about the interaction between Tawa and Shunyata?
Tawa is the view of Shunyata. We use the word sunyata when we talk about the left-hand channels, the bell rather than the dorje, the vastness, the unconstrainableness, uncontainableness of Dharmakaya. We speak of bodhicitta when we talk about how the flow functions in manifestation. Nirmanakaya. In the middle. Sambhogakaya, the alive vitality, clear light nature, lucidity, ability to think and feel, luminosity, all these words are used. You are that, not this. Don't go standing in Nirmanakaya trying to look at Dharmakaya. Step into Sambhogakaya. Tantra will help you. Identify as that vitality of awareness, which has existed since beginningless time, of which you are a mote. Moving, changing, growing, diminishing, circling, but alive, vital, awake, aware. If the infinite vast emptiness called sunyata was not awake and aware, it could not manifest itself as thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. You are a manifestation of that awakeness and awareness. Your personality is just a clump of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions. But beyond the personality, there is big you. The Yakis call it totality of the self. Lakota is Wakantanka. That indescribable, ineffable, completely unsquishable. You can't squish it. You can only squish the orifice through which you perceive it. Svabhavakaya. The three kayas as one. In Mahamudra, dancing stillness will point you there. In Dzogchen, quick glances will point you there. How many more questions do we have in the waiting line?
17 so far. I know.
Anything good?
One question is from somebody planning to attend your Chenrezig retreat, which I believe is in, that one's Austria? No.
Austria or Germany, somewhere up that
Right.
way.
And the question is, what are your recommendations to prepare for that retreat for anyone planning to go?
Practice Chenrezig and working with emotions. Teaching on working with remote emotions retreat coming up next month. We have to do working with thoughts first, or you won't be able to do working with emotions because they ride the thoughts. So that's happening in the beginning of next month, working with thoughts. And then a couple of weeks later, I'll do working with emotions as a Zoom. So if you want it, sign up. I'll do it twice if there's too many of you, or we'll figure out how we're going to do that. Next question.
Let's see what we have in the queue here. I've been sort of digesting a few of them. Let's see. Come on. There we go.
Yes, Molly.
In terms of the visual field before you when you're practicing seeing Tawa, you said that screens are not helpful.
If you're specifically doing sky gazing,
Okay, so if you're indoors,
don't worry about it. And the only reason for doing sky gazing is certain people with ADD or certain neural issues. All of us to some extent, but it's more extreme in those cases, will be seriously distracted by the environment they're in. They won't be able to make their eyes not focus on him or her or that. And so the Zen do the bare white wall. However, the Tibetans, I guess, don't have bare white walls among the nomads. So, or they think that that's too close a focus. You have to look at their environment, which is the vast rolling plains, where in Japan it's all miniature. So methods will go along with the culture. So in Tibet, if that happens to you, then you place yourself where you can sort of see directly ahead at the sky. So you don't have to crick your neck. Oh, you can go a little bit up like this. Can you see the angle of my eyes? But what you don't want to do is have to go like this. So is there a place here in the compound?
to see the sky.
Yeah, where you can straight ahead see the sky.
I'm doing it on right by the rainbow, on that wooden platform. I've been laying there during the day.
That's lying down.
Oh yeah, sorry.
But sitting at-
My porch. Can people access it for this practice? Okay, so I don't want you to do it past 3 hours after dawn. No, yeah. Go up there before dawn at twilight to do this practice. And don't stay past 2 or 3 hours after dawn. You can go up there at sunset and stay through sunset twilight. It may be too high for the skeeters. Or you can even go up maybe an hour before sunset. You never do sky gazing at noon. Inappropriate for physical reasons. In Tibet, you're very high altitude. The sun will harm you if you're sitting out in it at noon. And you always wear a hat. You don't want the sun to fall on your head. Now, admittedly, this is high altitude instructions, but I do not know if altitude was the only reason. So not sure where the baby ends and the bathwater begins on that one. Wear a hat. Let's just keep it. It's no harm. Everybody can find a hat. So if you want to try that, and there's access to this, Neil, perhaps that would be the place to go. Won't bother me if you're thumping around up there. Hyperfocus, remember?
Yeah.
And the rest of you out there, seek around in your own neighborhood, wherever you are, for a place like that. If you're in the mountains, it's much easier. If you're in the plains, that also can work. And if you're by the sea, just look out to sea. The horizon's in the right place, even from sitting on a beach. This works best when the sky is either fully overcast or fully clear. little scuttling clouds are a bit too interesting. And you're doing it to get away from interesting, distracting phenomena. Next question.
Oh, a question from one of the translators. What is the practice of skygazing? Is that a...
There's a variety of them. What I have just explained is one of them. There's others using other positions, physical positions, very specific. There's others where you do other things in the process. Certain ones are always done lying down. So there's a variety of practices which include gazing at the sky and therefore may be called sky gazing. This is a main one, and this is pretty close to the one Norbu Rinpoche has taught, as far as I know. Next question.
For a moment or two, I wasn't either thinking or perceiving like everything was on hold, yet something must have still been, quote, there, end of quote, for me being able to notice it. Is it Tawa?
Your awareness does not come and go. And that was Shine. Resting in stillness. What remained was your awareness, because stillness is not a big dead old nuttin'. It's alive, it's aware. It just isn't doing anything at the moment. It's still, not moving, but not dead. Alive with the ability to perceive, to think, to feel. Shine, Shiwa, peace. Ne, seat, power point, power place. Shine, seat of stillness, or power point of stillness, or power place of stillness. So Pema is a ne. All the famous pilgrim spots are nes. So ne implies more than just seat or place. Mount Shasta is a ne. Go up there, you'll see. Quite obvious. So those little gaps where nothing's happening, sometimes called a mitokpa nyam, an experience of not thinking, is a form of shine, resting in stillness. Next question.
Can familiarization with the mind be obtained without a teacher, but by means of reading Dzogchen texts?
Nope. You'll fool yourself. We're tricky little buggers, and we don't want to let go. Somebody's got a stamp on your little fingers when you hang on to the cliff. You need a teacher. The pointing out the four wongs are absolutely necessary, or what you will focus on is a made-up, imaginary Tawa. Somebody needs to show you telepathically the real one. Someone needs to show you symbolically how to find it. Someone needs to show you emotionally its beauty. Someone needs to convince you intellectually that it is possible, That's the four wongs. Yes, Molly, we'll get one over here.
Can I ask a somber question about practicing Dzogchen?
Yes.
If we do that in this space, which
Mhm.
way would we be facing? Would we sit facing each other
Mm-mm.
or sit facing the wall?
And traditionally, one would sit facing the altar.
So we'd line up.
Like you are here. Some of you would face the room because that was more comfortable. Someone might choose to face the wall. Someone might choose to sit in a chair because their back wanted that. Someone might go to the window and face out it because that's what they felt they needed. The point of practicing together is simply that you'll synergize. Like a coven. It's why you do casting in a group of 13 Wiccan, because that's more powerful than 13 individuals casting separately. Next question. See, I'm using Western analogies, which a Tibetan would never think of. They don't know from covens. Yes.
Those of us that missed the beer garden last Sunday, is there anything you can say about practicing Dzogchen in the pub here?
Oh, at all times and on all occasions, whatever you're doing right while you're doing it. Notice Dharmakaya nature of mind. All I did was occasionally poke people and say, is your mind still there? And do a little bit of a zap.
I do find myself able to discern the difference between that and the naturally liberating whatever you need, that passage, or from the earlier instructions today.
There really wasn't a difference. It's just that I did that because I had been told by some people that distraction was a problem and noise was a problem. So I wanted to demonstrate how you work with that. If I'm here regularly, we could meet on a regular basis or something and practice down at a pub. There's a local. It's nice. Yes, Victoria.
Yeah, how do you work with loneliness in the context of Dzogchen?
Working with emotions.
Okay.
It's the Western direction. Lust and loneliness are both the same coin, because what we have here is this urge to merge with another, whether it's an urge to merge sexually or emotionally or both. It's an extremely strong energy. I mean, it runs us around most of our life until we get what we think we want, and then mostly we fight with it. Partners. So we work with that energy in the same way you work with fear, anger, or competitive comparativeness, or avarice and dissatisfaction, or that sludgy depression that paralyzes one from time to time. You rip the rug of the story out from under its feet, strip it naked of all the words that justify or suppress or explain it. Do that by practicing Dzogchen at it. See the story in the context of Tawa as bits arising and vanishing. Allow them to be disconnected. When you have a pure, naked emotion there without any story around it, feel it in your body. There, you will have it somewhere. That one often goes here or even lower. but not always. Some people get it in their left foot. Feel it in the body, and then don't focus on the body. Don't focus away from the body. Just feel it and accept it, but don't stare at it. Don't start staring at the part of the body. Just catch the feeling, recognize the feeling, the sensation of it. Feeling as a sensation of the yi. And then don't mind it. Accept that you will feel this forever. Do not throw a bathrobe called labeling it as pain or pleasure on it. Leave it naked and just feel it and accept feeling that, so you are no longer trying to shove it into some kind of shape that what you think won't hurt. Either by satisfying it, it's a desire, or by suppressing it. All these actions that you can do with an emotion. When you can actually stop doing that for a while and relax long enough for the constriction to release itself, pop. It arises in its actual state, undistorted by desire and aversion. And the natural state of lust and loneliness is bodhicitta. The real bodhicitta. You see why working with thoughts is so important for working with emotions? Because the first instruction is strip it naked of the story. And if you don't know how to do that, using basic Dzogchen method, that will make no sense to you. Yeah, coming up next month in more detail. Next question.
Okay. What is your recommendation after the root Lama passes away? Should one stay practicing what one has gotten or look for a teacher?
It depends on how you feel. Are you satisfied with what you have received? Is it enough to practice for the rest of your life? Great, do that. Do you feel that you weren't ready enough yet for this to happen? To lose your teacher, who is inevitably usually older than you are, and you still need more guidance, more teachings in order to accomplish your path? Find another teacher to hold your hand. They won't be your root teacher, but they can be your heart teacher. Your root teacher is the one who first shows you the nature of your mind in such a way that you get it. That's like whoever you lost your virginity to. You may not marry him, you may not ever see him again, but you will probably remember them with fondness or some other emotion, depending on the circumstances. Your root teacher is the first one who showed you the nature of your mind in such a way that you get it. In this life, you get one of those, but you may never even see them again. It may not be the one who now teaches you to practice. Many people's root teachers are somebody like Karmapa, but you can't, they're busy, they're big, or the Dalai Lama. So in that, because somehow it worked, they went to a teaching of theirs and it went in, and they got it. Okay, that's your root teacher. Now you need a heart teacher to help you walk the path, because just a quick glimpse of a transmission may not be enough for you. If it is, great, you just practice that. If it isn't, find a heart teacher. You can have many in your life. May I have one more question, and I think we're at about time.
Do you believe that most of the ancient or old tribes found Dzogchen in their own way?
I neither believe nor disbelieve that. I don't know. I know that the Trail of Tears and other things on this continent, many lineages were lost. I know that the Inquisition in Europe, the witch trials, many lineages were lost. I know that when the Chinese took Tibet, many lineages were lost, but not all of them. Some of them made it over the mountains out. I know that what's going on among the Muslims these days may well destroy many of their lineages. They've gotten a bit sorry, sectarian. How unfortunate. There may be valid Sufi lineages that will be destroyed in the next 50 years within the politics of that. Because right now there's an awful lot of that going on inside Afghanistan, Iran, and the other countries that are strongly doing that. The Australian Aborigines, what's left of them, I do not know. They were hunted once. I suspect many lineages were lost. So even though it may be that these tribes and here and there did have, they may not have it now. The continuity of lineage is vitally important. One more, love.
Okay. I'm having trouble describing my states in meditation. Can you explain the difference between Buddha nature mind, bodhicitta mind, empty mind, equanimity, and so on?
And those are words. They're all spelled differently. Why would you want to explain it? If you had a pizza, would you really want to explain it? Eat your pizza, honey. Don't be explaining it. Don't get focused on the words. None of the words reach there. Look, they're the handles on the teapot, and none of them hold tea. If the handle breaks off the teapot, you can still take a rag and lift the teapot. But if the teapot falls to the ground and all you have is the handle, you cannot pour a cup of tea. Words are the handles. In fact, they're even called that in some slang. What's your handle? What's your name? Don't focus on the words. Not valuable. Focus on Tawa. Focus on mind with mind, mind looking. So simple. There's nothing to it. Using all the tricks that you need that I've taught you, and maybe even a few that you thought up for your own self, like facing a white wall that I didn't teach you. Open up your point focus. from the individual bits of thoughts and feelings and sensations that you usually compulsively obsess with, to the infinite openness of awareness, the vastness of mind itself. Don't try to name it or describe it, for all the names and all the descriptions arise in mind and dissolve in mind. They do not encompass mind. And relax. To notice the nature of your own mind is the first vital point. Then it's simply a matter of becoming familiar with it. Familiarize yourself with this. Frequently open up your attention from that damn point focus that you're addicted to. Just take a break for a minute and relax. And as thoughts, feelings, and perceptions arise, recognize them as transparent and don't pay them no never mind. Let them pluck, let them flush. They're not made of anything other than mind. They're utterly without substance or even duration. And relax. And do that frequently. But don't force it to stay. Do it until you do something else. Don't try to extend those quick glance sessions. But don't shove it away once you've seen it. Just notice it and relax, and then when moving on occurs, move on. You don't have an intent to make it longer or an intent to make it shorter. You leave it be what it is. Very simple Dzogchen instructions. Ge wandi nyur duda che che sala go parshu. We are complete. I'd like to remind those of you who have been listening in a language other than English to thank your translators by making them a gift of things or at least kind words. It makes them happy. And if your translator is happy, they'll keep translating. If any of you out there wish to merge your practice with a yogi by financially supporting them in retreat, which doesn't take much more than the cost of a beer and a pizza every month, drop me an email and we'll work on introducing you to a yogi. Because the way it works is you do a personal relationship. I'm not in it. I just introduce you to somebody and then you guys work together. Yes, we have a translator out there. And I don't think I've forgotten anything.
No, I don't think so either.
Then we are complete. No teachings next weekend. We have the potluck here in New Orleans, don't we?
Yes.
With the potluck on the 26?
We did a tentative, but I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, that's good. So 6 to 9, the potluck? Here,
Here,
out there.
as it happens, let's see what the weather does. But it should be sort of everywhere. I mean, isn't it sort of easier to do food out there? Make it easy, Molly. Easy is good. Besides, it's a party. When's the auction?
Sunday, 6 to 9.
Oh, and I did check, and that is Norbu Rinpoche's Melong. So, and I need to look and see what else I have to pop in. Do you do an auction every year?
No, this is our first. Of this type.
Because boy, do I have stuff, but it's not here.
Yeah, this is a spiritual items only auction.
Yeah.
People are on.
I have spiritual items of my yin yang.